show you who starts where. Steve Owen, who almost qualified in the top 10, had a troublesome opening race. So too did Will Davison. Black flag, drive-through penalty. That's why he's starting back where he is. And then the two Team BOC machines, Brad Jones, John Bauer, had a chat with them this morning. They got hustled off the track yesterday, a little bit frustrating. And then we work our way through the grid. And if you've just joined us, you missed the top of the show. The important thing about this race, this is the last reverse grid race. V8 Supercars Australia made that decision after their mid-year planning meeting that they would do away with them for 2006. They haven't used the words ever, but it's certainly the checkered flag is out for this reverse grid style. Russell Ingall made great progress. So too did Max Wilson yesterday, and Stephen Johnson, all making up significant positions. Wilson went 18 to 11, Johnson went 17 to 10, and Ingall went 23 to 12. And then we get back into the guys who ended the day yesterday with a big, big smile on their faces. They are in good shape for the rest of the weekend. However, this is the tough one. And although Todd Kelly won the race, he doesn't start last because these three gentlemen did not finish the race. Paul Radisich, Mark Scaife and Garth Tander all have to start at the back, and that is a tough task anywhere. Greg Russ, Daryl Beattie, as always, are in the pits.
Mind management is going to be one of the critical things in this reverse grid race and for the remainder of this round of the championship. Just behind us here, Rob Crawford and Matthew Nilsson, the engineer who looks after Garth Tander's car. They need to get GT's championship back on track. He needs to salvage something from this weekend. Conversely, Craig Lowndes needs to keep building on his new series lead. Watch for Campbell Little to really guide him through the remainder of the afternoon.
Well, at Oran Park, a standing start down through the fast turn one is over 200 kilometres an hour. And today, the reverse grid is the last one for the season. But with the slower drivers at the front and the fast punters at the back of the grid, they will be looking for an opportunity to pass early here on the start of the race, up the inside on cold tyres. But the consequences can be very serious, so watch out for that concertina effect.
Two very valid points. Thanks for that, boys, and we look forward to this one. The significant point about this, Neil, is that it's much, much longer than yesterday. 40 kilometres longer, 38 laps yesterday, 53 today. This is going to be long, hard, tough.
140 kilometres in total, and the track is very slippery here this weekend relative to 12 months ago. Lots of theories as to why that may be. But Daryl's point is a very good one down there. We need to watch and pay particular attention to the way everybody behaves, trying to thread their way through turns 1 and 2. These are a couple of the guys that we'll be keeping an eye on through this race. Craig Lowndes, Mark Scaife, Greg Murphy. Mixed fortunes for each of them yesterday.
And the pressure is on these boys right at the front.
Steve Owen will be in pretty good shape here. He was quite quick on Friday. This car seems to be working quite well around here, the Autobahn entry.
Ready to go, race 2. It is the final reverse grid race in V8 Supercars. We're away. And a great start, Will Davison. He goes with Steve Owen, and look at that, Dick Johnson fourth fly.
Excellent start for Will. He might round him up on the outside here.
Side by side, Steve Owen will have the preferred line. Whoa, around goes Marcus Marshall.
That was close. That was as close as you want to have one in V8 Supercar competition, to skate across the grass down the infield and to not pop out in front of everybody there. Something of a miracle. There was trouble at the back of the pack there on the run into turn 3. Somebody got turned right around, and we can see out on the left-hand side there.
It's Scaife. His weekend goes from bad to worse as they fly off the bridge. One of the best corners on the track. The dust flies. They are into it. Someone else is off. It's one of the Brightech Fords. Warren Luff, or is it Jose Fernandez?
It's Fernandez that was just off the road there briefly at turn 8. Look at the amount of dirt and debris, rubber build-up off the racing line. Steve Owen is the race leader, 0.7 of a second margin over Will Davison. Unfortunately, Will was on target for a very strong result in race 1.
Zinger replay.
There was a lock-up further up the road, and Scaife got tangled up in it.
And that was Daryl's point right before the race, the concertina effect. Hard on the brakes, down into turn 3. Watch this.
It had already happened, you see. It was even further in front of James Courtney, and it just sent a ripple back through the pack. And Scaife tangled up in it at the end.
One of the lucky ones there was Jamie Whincup. That 888 Better Electrical Ford as Lowndes goes round on cue. We're talking about this team.
Did a great job of that one.
And he just nominated Garth, so there must have been some aggravation there between Tander and Lowndes at turn 3.
And those two guys have been the talking point because they're fighting for the championship along with Rick Kelly, the top 3 in this series at the moment.
And Garth's been on the radio saying that another car was into the back of him, so we'll wait and see whether any more information unfolds. Oh, Ingle and Morris contact final turn. Stephen Johnson will probably get a bit of a run up the inside here as a result of that in the First Rock Home Loans forward, and does. He'll be in position now when they get down to the kink.
Stephen has had a very solid weekend. May not have been the qualifying position that he wanted, but to make up 7 positions in the opening race. And, oh, Morris gets into Ingle. So they continue their personal fight. It's on.
It's on big time here. Car 26, Jose Fernandez is going to get a drive-through penalty for a problem at the start, perhaps jumping the start.
Neil and Lee, that effect with Morris getting in the side of Ingle into turn 2, I could see from the pit lane here. I'm not sure exactly, I didn't see the timing on it, but it's a super cheap car that's behind Morris. Gave Morris a big push and he went into Ingle.
Just to update the track and ambient temperatures for you. Ambient currently 21, circuit temperature 27 degrees heading into this race. Interesting problem for Jason Richards yesterday, sweat in the eyes. Remember, it's quite a warm winter's day here at Oran Park, and it made his vision a little tough.
That was on board Craig Lowndes, the Zinger replay. He was right behind his teammate Jamie Whincup, and right behind him.
He gave him quite a nudge, didn't he? So
was Garth Tander.
But he was in turn on the radio to his boys saying that he got a shove from Marcus Marshall. 10.7, the fastest lap of the race. Steve Owen, he's got a 1.3 second margin. He'll be in pretty good shape, I reckon, in this one.
Look how wild it is back here. Whincup got through on Bright. Now Tander's trying to do the same, but he's on the wrong side for the next turn. Has he got the drive out of turn 2? He's positioned himself well, but here comes Bright and just squeezes his way back through. Todd Kelly's in the mix there. These guys are well down the order. It is frantic out there.
And Lee, it's getting hot behind the steering wheel for a number of drivers. Rick Kelly's been on the radio to his engineer, Eric Pender. There's been some contact. One of the Gary Rogers motorsport cars has gone off the exit of the bridge. But Rick's getting a little concerned about Paul Morris. He wants to get on with the job here and wants to bank a good championship round.
They're not playing friendly today in the sandpit, are they?
No, this is an awkward track. At the top of the show, we detailed the fact that from everywhere off the bridge. Oh, trouble for Rick Kelly. He'll end up in the wall here if he's not careful. Oh, thankfully arrested by the sand trap on the outside of turn 10. Now, why was that the case? What tripped over car 15? Was there somebody else pushing and shoving there?
Right, let's... All right.
Winterbottom looks at Morris. Not close enough this time round. Stephen Richards is lining up for a shot. Stephen had a brilliant opening race yesterday, 16th to 8th. Very solid stuff, and his teammates just 2 positions further back.
Car number 18, Will Davison, is going to also do a drive-through penalty for a false start. So 2 days in a row for Will, unfortunately, having to tour through the pit lane.
He got a drive-through penalty yesterday for overlapping at the restart of the race, and the car in which he overlapped was Dean Canto. Canto said he lost 5 positions in total, but he reckons there was probably about 2 other guys besides Davison who perhaps deserved a drive-through as well in that restart. Looking at Paul Morris, he sits in 14th position. Winterbottom is 15th.
Well, this is the last time that they have to endure the reverse grid process for a while, and the radio's just alive on all channels at the moment. Drivers just howling about other drivers' behaviour and blocking. And when you invert the speed of the cars, the quick guys at the back. I think it was just that Rick got pinched there for space.
He was dicing with Canto.
I don't think anybody else was into the back of the car.
Pretty hairy part of the track to go through that as well. That's very fast there. Very, very fast. This battle continues here. Mid-pack, Meanwhile, Steve Owen has a 1.2 lead over Will Davison, who will come through to serve that drive-through penalty. So that'll open up a nice little buffer for the Autobahn Commodore. And then Warren Luff will inherit second place, courtesy of Davison's drive-through. Then it's Lee Holdsworth, then it's Brad Jones, Fabian Coulthard, who made up 10 positions yesterday. He went 29 to 19th in his return drive, preparing for the Enduros. The next one up is Sandown, the Better Electrical 500. Inside move here. This is Tander on Whincup and executes it nicely.
Interestingly, oh no! What was all that about?
Oh, and then one of the Gary Rogers cars, that's Lee Holdsworth, has nudged into the end of the Armco. It's Canto. What is going on there? He made a last-minute decision to dive for the pits, but made that decision a little too late. This has been a crazy race so far. And we're only on lap 7.
Brad Jones is going to get a drive-through as well for a false start. So a few people were a bit eager at the start of the race. Courtney service, done and gone. That was madness, all that stuff at the pit lane entry.
Wow. Mark Winterbottom was very, very lucky. He had that car fully sideways, but it was pointing in the right direction, the right angle to go in pit entry. Pit window open. This 53 lap event. They must.
Yesterday's race winner Todd Kelly's already up to 20th place. He's got Scaife behind him. Here they are. Is Scaife on bright.
Interesting point from what you say with that debacle going into pit lane lead. Winterbottom took on 4 tyres, and yesterday the trend up and down pit lane was just the 2 rear tyres. So I wonder if they did that as a safety in case he had any flat spotted tyres.
Nice and early too. Came in nice and early. He's got a long way to go.
Curious thing about the first race was that there was no Cam Stewart's intervention at all. No incidents to be investigated. They had a quiet day yesterday. They're not going to have a quiet one today. There's been a lot unfold out there. There's a lot of ill feeling, a lot of aggravation on the racetrack.
Just check that.
Yesterday's race 1 winner, Todd Kelly. Just goes for the rears.
I think he just lost a spot to Stevie Richards there.
Indeed he did. Lowndes is done. So too Radicic. So too Jason Richards.
He's got a bit of foam sticking out the front. Whoop, a little bit of trouble here between Morris and Richards. A little bit of foam sticking out of the front. Or is it the guard itself? No, it's a bit of an HRT guard. I'm surprised that when they stopped the car, put rubber on it, they didn't pluck that off. It's a little bit of the rear bumper by the look of it.
Some great pit stop battles unfolding down here, and it's fairly even between both the Holden Racing team and the 888 crew. Good effort. They got Lowndes in and out just like they did in race 1 very, very quickly. And James Courtney was one of the first to stop when all that action unfolded at the top of the pit entry there. He was already in the lane. They've changed the rear tyres on Courtney's car and made a roll centre adjustment to it as well.
And Courtney did a very good job at Queensland Raceway the previous round in exactly this situation. He came in early and made up significant positions. Zinger replay. This is the pit entry debacle. Watch this.
Yeah. So that was Stephen Richards into the back of Mark Winterbottom. Car number 12's also got a false start drive-through penalty, John Bow. And this is one of the problems of the pit lane entry at, actually what Dean did there was, and I'll be surprised if he doesn't cop a penalty for driving across the white line. The late call to just do to turn right and do that.
He could have been speared in the side there. He could have been T-boned big style.
I think when Dean has a look at that in replay later on himself, he'll go, whoops.
And if we had classic catches in V8 Supercar Racing, Mark Winterbottom would win. That was incredible. Time for a break. We'll be back to Oran Park with so much more to come from race 2 in this triple race weekend. You're watching V8 Supercars on your home of motorsport. Zinger replay. Bang. That is a common sight here at Oran Park with that wall so close to the exit of turn 11.
Garth Tander's motoring along quite nicely at the moment. He's behind Greg Murphy. Those two are 9th and 10th. Steve Owens, the race leader. Warren Luff, Lee Holdsworth, Fabian Coulthard, Andrew Jones, Russell Ingall 6. Murphy peels off. So Tan moves up another spot now. The point I was going to make before the break was that the pit in, unfortunately, also happens to be the exit line for turn 11. And so without any warning that he was going to slow down, Stephen Richards has done nothing wrong there coming off the final corner, because you're chasing another competitor. You don't know he's going to go to the pit lane. All of a sudden he slows up on what is the race line. It's unfortunate that the race line is also pit in, and it's something that's been looked at over the years by the safety committee at CAMS, but it's not an easy fix.
Gee, Lowndes is good through there, over the dog leg. This is where he was challenging Kelly yesterday, and he's picked up a spot. Very nice work on Paul Dumbrell. Climbs that hill, takes an extremely left line, and just dives on the inside. That was a great move from Lowndes. Finished second in the opening race yesterday. He now leads this championship and is in very strong, consistent form. Steve Owen has a very handy race lead at the moment in the Autobahn Commodore. 7.3 seconds over Warren Lough in the Fujitsu Ford. Here's the Zinger replay. Lowndes on Dumbrell.
Craig just snuck across the extreme left over the top of the dogleg at turn 10, and Paul knew that he had pace and was coming, and he gave him space in the braking area. This little scrap here is on for young and old, including Mark Winterbottom. These guys are right down the back of the pack. Rick Kelly, Mark Winterbottom, Dean Canto. They're in the late 20s in terms of positioning. 28, 29, 30. Fraught races for them.
Even though Winterbottom finished well yesterday in the top 10 in 7th position, so he wasn't happy with the amount of traction that they had yesterday. Wanted more for today. So far, so good. It looks like he's trucking along nicely.
Well, both the Team BOC cars have done drive-through penalties. First, Brad Jones for a jump start. Now, John Bowe for a jump start. Kim, you're not too happy about it?
No, I'm not. We've seen the TV from here, and unless my eyes are playing tricks on me, I don't think we did a jump start. It amazes me how we have people who are judge of facts. They are judge of facts. We play by the rules, and we have to take the penalty as it stands. But anybody who watches on TV can see neither car does. And there was no advantage game. One car went from 6th to second last. The other car lost 2 spots at the start. You know, it is very hard. Our team works very, very hard to get to where we've got. We looked like Bradley was going to have a reasonable result, and it's taken away from us. No point of argument, no dispute. You don't have any way of defending yourself. It's over and done with. And the people sitting up there that make the decisions, you know, they go home, they do what they want to do. We have to keep racing. We have to justify to our sponsors what we're doing, try and get good results, and that's what we're doing. I think it's terribly unfair.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you.
Well, we know how he feels about that. Team BOC have a very special guest this weekend. 2 special guests, I should say. Todd Russell, one of the Beaconsfield miners, and of course the guy who rescued the boys, Darren Flanagan. They've had a wonderful weekend. They went for a ride with Brad the other day and enjoying their time watching V8 Supercars.
10.5, fastest lap of the race, Craig Lowndes on this lap. He's still in the mid-20s. You still see that little bit of bodywork from the rear bumper, the HRT car on Jason Richards. Number 3 Tasman Motorsport entry.
Crombo, just to interrupt here, they've got the tyres on standby here for Russell Ingall. I had a words of Barry Hay, his engineer, a few moments ago, and he said, we've been getting him to make as much advantage or take advantage of that track position while he can. So they've run a little bit longer here. The man who won the round here last season is desperately trying to salvage something to keep his championship, you know, his bid for a repeat of the championship win last year on track.
Russell told me the other day, Stone Brothers and himself, they are always better in the second half of the season. This was a turning point for Russell last year. He hasn't won a race or a round in 12 months. This is where it all happened, as Greg said, in 2005. And he had dreadful trouble in qualifying. He was very unlucky because he was on fast laps in qualifying, only to have red flags come out both times when he was on hot laps. Qualified way back in 23rd and had to work extremely hard yesterday, and he did that by coming up to 12th position. He's a battler, Russell Ingall. He's not only the champion, but he's a fighter. He never gives up.
Race controls looking at that bodywork on Jason Richards' car. I don't know that it represents any significant threat. Little contact there. Oh, big contact. Not little at all in the end. And whichever one of the super cheap cars that was came off second best.
Whitcump's been doing some muscling in this race, and there's damage on the front of that car. It's causing one of the tyres to rub, courtesy of that contact with the Super Cheap Commodore.
Still don't know which Super Cheap car it was. I think it was Commodore, but I'm not 100%. No, it's Greg Murphy. Oh, in fact, lucky Jamie was there, because Murph was on his way to a spin then, precipitated by the contact, of course, but it was actually the second contact that saved him from looping right around.
Both Super Cheap Auto Commodores had pretty dreadful days yesterday. They were heading for perhaps top 15, maybe even top 10 results. They had two massive flat-spotted tyres. Both had to come in to change, and that could pay to any decent chances they had. What's going on here?
John Bow, contact with one of the Brightech entries at the exit of turn 2, having served that drive-through that Kim's hot under the collar about.
9 seconds is the lead margin for Steve Owen. It's a very big window for the compulsory pit stops, 5 through 37. Laps 5 through 37, that's where you must complete your stops. The majority of the field have done it. Saying that, though, our race leader, Steve Owen, has not, who boasts a 12-second lead at the moment. This will tell us more about the John Bow.
It was after he came out of the pit lane. So contact there with Warren Luff. And you can see at the back of Todd Kelly's car, it's got the corresponding chunk that's on Jason Richards' car. Those earlier shots. So now Russell takes his service. Straighten up the mirror. Looking up.
Go.
There are lights on that gantry. That's why the crew chief's looking up at those, knows when both of the guys changing wheels have done their job and put their hands in the air, and then the lights turn green. James Courtney, massive brake lock-up running into turn 2 there. That's probably a mark on the tyre.
I would say Russell Ingall is not in the mood to mess around this weekend. He was filthy after qualifying outside the top 20 and stormed through the field yesterday. You saw him, he and Paul Morris going at it.
There was a little arm wrestle with Andrew Jones then on the run beneath the bridge to turn 3. This is Lowndes on Todd Kelly. Makes it stick at turn 11.
That's where he wanted to execute the move yesterday. Couldn't quite get it done yesterday, but he has today. No doubt about that.
Lee, just to add there on Russell Ingall's stop, they were contemplating. Russell's been doing this for the last couple of rounds, contemplating quite late in the game before making the stop whether to change the car at all. There was talk they were going to make a roll centre adjustment. Just to update, no changes, just tyres for Ingall during that stop.
Saw that pit stop incident on the entry to pit lane. Well, Paul Radisich was one of those drivers yesterday that had some damage to his car overnight. They replaced the cross member on that car, the right-hand lower control arm and a couple of rims, and also found a niggling problem with the Watts linkage, but he's battling at the back of the field right now.
This will trigger a safety car. This will trigger a safety car with Steve Owens stop where he is.
Try turning the dead man off and then turn it back on.
It's Oscar Fiorinotto.
I'm pushing all the fuses in, Steve, on the dash.
This is our race leader, folks.
What Oscar's asked him to do is completely switch all the power off. Yeah, safety car is going to be deployed. He's asked him to switch the entire power off, the master switch next to the driver, and then recycle it, see if they can reboot whatever the issue may be. But meantime, we've gone full course yellow, and that's an opportunity for those that have not taken their stops to do so. Leading the pack here is Garth Tander. Power steering dramas for him yesterday.
And for Steve Owen and the Autobahn team, it's been 2 steps forward, 1 step back this weekend. Whenever they've been in a position to go, well, escape comes in and that prevents Tander from being released. It was only for a moment, though.
Clear, mate, clear.
Taking some debris away from the front of Jason Bright's car. There was a bit of foam or rubbish stuck in the front there, and that would have been spiking the water temperature on the car. This will actually work out pretty well for these fellas, although remember this second race, half points value by reference to races 1 and 3. Zinger replay, what's going on here? This is the problem where Mark was peeling in for his stop, so Rob Crawford held Garth Tander quite appropriately, and Paul Radisich has gone off, but back on subsequently at turn 2. Scrappy race.
It's been a crazy old race, hasn't it? The WPS safety car is on course. That means we'll make the most of it. Take a break. Back soon. More racing from Oran Park when we return. But he is yet to stop. Stephen Johnson has. That means the 17 Dick Johnson Racing Ford is effectively the race leader as they go hard at it. There were a couple of other big winners due to that caution period. Garth Tander and Mark Scaife, who started right at the back of the field, have gained big time.
These aerial shots are giving you a good idea of just how grotty the circuit is offline at the moment. No secret that the country's gripped in drought. The track's pretty dry and dusty despite a bit of recent rain in Sydney. Everybody reporting it to be very slippery. Lap time's dramatically slower than this time last year. So that's given a lot of teams quite a headache trying to figure out how to tune to the current conditions here. Nobody tested this track. The vast majority of teams are based in southeast Queensland or down in Victoria. So this game on from the start, trying to come up with really a car setup that would work here. Quite an issue. And because this is a longer race, and so is race 3, 140 Ks, this will really sorely test the balance of cars. Typically the pattern, so that's the reason why Paul Radisich ended up off the road down there, contact with Will Davison. Typically what's been happening in this reverse grid race through the year, Lee, is most people choosing to use their worst combination of tyres, for want of a better description, in order to have their best 2 sets available for race 3.
You mentioned the track condition earlier. Russell Ingall said within the space of 12 months, as we've lost one of the Tasman Commodores, it's Jason Richards.
For a weekend that started out promising for Steve Owen, he was 10th in free practice on Friday. Yesterday he had some damage with that car. I think the contact was with Garth Tander. He broke the steering front right arm on that car, and now he's lost complete electrics in that car. CDI or something going on, or circuit breaker.
Safety car is going to be deployed here because of the position of Jason Richards' car for sure, and it is full course yellow again.
It's Campbell Little talking to Craig Lowndes.
Okay.
Safe.
So really, Campbell, you're saying the only person I've got to worry about now is Toddler.
At the moment, Craig, the way the points are, you'd start the race, third race, P1. We just got to stay where we are around there, and we'll be okay.
Okay.
Fantastic, isn't it? While he is out there battling 30 other cars, he's thinking about the big picture, regularly communicating with his race engineer, Campbell Little, and sussing it all out.
Well, it's a risk management thing. He needs to know who he needs to push with and who he needs to avoid. Cars are now all in genuine positions. Compulsory pit stops have all been completed. Oh, that was the reason why Jason Richards went straight ahead. He climbed up over Will Davison's car, and that'll have done terminal steering damage to that car, and he's just nudged her off on the grass verge on the exit of turn 3.
All right, so we can watch genuine high-speed racing. We'll squeeze in another commercial break while it's yellow. We'll be back in a moment. More from Oran Park. His first full-time season as a V8 Supercar driver, and that is one of the Tall HSV cars gone.
Tander, I think, just went straight off the road there and has nudged up on the wall underneath the bridge. He has managed to grab reverse. The sill panel's been dragged off it. That's no big deal, but it's going to need attention. They won't let it flap like that on an ongoing basis. Well, it's on here at the top of the bridge as well. Todd Kelly on Stephen Richards.
Well, it's interesting that during that safety car period, Matthew Nilsson, who works quite closely with Garth Tander, was on the radio to him a fair bit, and he said, listen, let's do the same thing we did at the recommencement last time. Let's make some good ground on those cold tyres at the restart. So Tander pounced at the last restart. Maybe this time, maybe... who knows? That's not good for Tander. Led the series coming into this round.
Greggy led by 38 points coming into this round. And he saw himself with a non-finish yesterday, dropped from first to third, and now he's going right to the back again.
And going into this race, as I said in our opening hosting league, 86 points behind Craig Lowndes. going into the race, and that margin's going to widen on current indication.
Gone completely the opposite way to what Garth Tander wanted this weekend. He wanted to gap Lowndes, grow that lead. He's lost it. And with the way Lowndes is going this weekend, he's in 7th already and getting stronger and stronger.
Let's have a look at what happened to Garth here. We're seeing it a bit after the fact there. Unfortunately, Garth was already heading across the ripple strip from the other angle. He was on the outside of James Courtney for some reason, but why? There's still more to that one. Courtney lost a couple of spots in the process too. Garth's on the radio describing the, quote, wheels hanging off him. So he's coming into the pit lane this time, and they'll have a look at that and see how much damage there is and try and ensure that the car at least finishes.
Teammate on teammate here as Tander's Toll HSV Commodore is in the lane.
Lee, Rob Crawford, the team boss here at HSV, has been having a good chat to Garth, as Neil detailed. And he wasn't sure about that. They're throwing 4 tyres at it. Obviously, they're going to try and get him back out. OK. He described the car as wobbling all over the place, but that may just be the state of those destroyed tyres as he came down the lane. Let's hope it's straight enough to complete this race.
And Garth's experienced enough, Greg, to now do a bit of a sighting lap on this out lap. He'll have cold tyres, so he'll need to take it a little gently, and he's way back in the field, so he'll just do a quick assessment and then try and at least get the car home and finish, get some points and regroup for race 3. But this has been a costly round for Garth Tander.
You may have noticed there, one of the pit guys just rips the wheel off one-handed. Oh, there's mayhem here. Carnage coming off the bridge.
Greg Murphy, who was on the radio prior to this, describing the car as being dreadful. Now, a lot of damage on that. Greg's going nowhere. This could also trigger a safety car, because if he's off on, and Andrew Jones, I'd say, must have been the other party, educated
Okay,
guess.
just trundle in, try and drive in the garage.
Oh, there's more to it. Max Wilson, massive damage on the WPS Ford. So 3 cars
Get 4 tyres out. Only 2, only the front, only the
on
front.
board with Max now, pit in. You can see that point I was making earlier about pit in also being the exit line for the final turn. It's quite a dangerous situation there.
So narrow, that entry. Murphy's out of the car.
Now,
his race is done.
I reckon where Greg's parked may well attract some attention from race director Tim Schenken as well, because if he's off in the grass where you could get to that car if you did make a mistake, that'll probably trigger a safety car and they might tow it out of the way. I need to see broadly where it is, see whether it is dodgy or not.
Oh, Bright has got into the side of Murphy. The tap there enough to turn Greg around, and he's blocked the track.
Andrew Jones and Max Wilson were just unwilling participants in that, and the rest of the field just scatters every which way. What a chaotic race.
And we've only just crossed halfway. And
that'll be bad news for Bright, because touching the back of Greg's car like that, I think Jason will probably be likely to incur a penalty for that. So that from starting pole, that's got the potential of turning his weekend around. Pole, that is, in race 1, I should say. And they're turning around in the wrong direction for him.
Max Wilson had a pretty heavy accident in that same position on Friday afternoon. He left the track doing about 150 kilometres per hour, had heavy contact with the tyre barrier, damaged the car. The team did a wonderful job to get him back out. So it's been an eventful weekend for the Brazilian. It's been an eventful race, to say the least. Bright able to continue in the Cat Ford. He's got Rick Kelly chasing him. These guys are back in 13th and 14th.
Damage on the front of Jason's car there. Won't be good for the water temperature or the brake temperature, because the front wing splitter is all hanging off the car. It's actually dragging on the road.
When we came back from the commercial break, I said pressure on young shoulders of Lee Holdsworth. Well, I tell you what, he's handling the pressure. He's got a 1.5 second lead over Stephen Johnson and pulling away. Doing a wonderful job at the front. Dean Canto experienced a reverse grid victory earlier this year at Barbagallo in Perth. Perhaps Lee Holdsworth could get his best ever finish as a V8 supercar driver here today. It's been a good weekend for GRM, because Canto picked up his first ever top 10 shootout. Oh, and Fernandez has gone around.
Oops, that's a bad spot to be. A very bad spot to be at the final corner. but he's managed to get reverse, then get a gear and get on his
You
way.
okay, Jose?
He's able to go on. And this will tell us a little bit more. The Zinger replay. There's a BOC Ford in there. Brad Jones. A little bit of hip and shoulder into the final turn. Jose, I'm coming through.
Punched the glass out of the back of that car too.
Here he is, our race leader, and that's what 1.7 seconds looks like as Stephen Johnson is fending off Russell Ingall. Fabian Coulthard is nicely in the mix. He's up there with Scaife, and then we've got the two better electrical Fords of Craig Lowndes and Jamie Whincup in that order. And Lowndes has only just got by Whincup, incidentally, for 6th position. Courtney's back in 8th, Barguana's 9th, and Todd Kelly, yesterday's race winner, rounds out the top 10. Here's Maxie Wilson, top of your screen, returning. WPS boys have had to do more repair work than they would have liked. And that's Alan Webber, the centre of the screen, in between Lucas Docking and Paul Gover, journalist Paul Gover. That's Mark Webber's dad. Follows his son around the world as often as work and life allows him to.
And Lee, he's not the only, I guess, motorsport guest here today. Craig Anderson, the Supercross ace, is currently in the Dick Johnson Racing Garage.
Who recently won the National Motocross Championship. Congratulations to the Honda rider. It's been a good year for Craig, although he's suffered some unnecessary injury. But we get back to the four-wheel stuff. 23 laps still to run as we ride with the Enforcer. Wow, did you see that car? Did you see Johnson's car do a wheelie up over there?
This graphic on the left is critical. This is the way the grid would line up for race 3 now. So these are the points if they finish in their current order. Lowndes on pole, sharing the front row with Todd Kelly. Craig's teammate Jamie Whincup row 2, with another Holden, Rick Kelly, alongside, and so forth. So that's if they stay as they are. There is certainly a long way to go. It'll be the case of the walking wounded at the end of this. They're already in the high 11s, the leaders, and then the majority of the field's battling around there, literally wobbling around in mid-12s. Not a lot of grip available, sliding all over the place. This is Scaife. He is in position 4 at the moment, chasing Russell.
And remember what a good drive it's been from Scaife. He started almost dead last. He was a big winner in that second caution period. Fell at the right time for he and Garth Tander, but Tander's lost any advantage gained.
And remember that Mark himself had a spin down there at turn 3 when the gang all bunched up in front of him. There was some sort of nose-to-tail contact further up the road. Scaife has a look here at Ingall. Just in front of them is Stephen Johnson.
One of the things the reverse grid race allows us to do as Barry Hay watches on, that's Russell Ingall's race engineer, is talk about some of the guys we may not necessarily give much attention to as Scaife is working on Ingall.
That's a hairy move, but he got through. Not often done to sneak through at turn 1, but he got through.
And one of those guys I want to give a pat on the back to is in that black Commodore, the Sirame machine, Fabian Coulthard, who has not driven since Winton, and he's going to get a ride in the upcoming Enduros with Paul Radisich for Team Kiwi Racing.
I'm looking forward to a change of rhythm in the racing. You know, the mentality of the way everybody goes racing at Sandown and Bathurst is very different to the sprint races, and having 2 drivers on board involving deeper strategy is going to be really, I think, a really enjoyable part of the season. A lot of competitive cars this year, a lot of very competitive drivers. And typically Melbourne in springtime can turn on anything at the Sandown 500 weather-wise. So over the years we've seen a pretty fascinating motor race down there. It brings out the best in people and their wet and dry track skills.
And you mentioned plenty of good drivers. There's plenty of great combinations with super strong drivers in the same car.
That was a pretty wild move, and Mark got it done, got down the inside. At the very same time, Craig Lowndes was on the radio complaining about Fabian Coulthard holding him up. He hasn't been able to get by. Oh, speaking of not being able to get by, a little bit of contact there between Will Davison and Mark Winterbottom at turn 11.
Davison has seen a potentially good weekend evaporate. There's our race leader, Lee Holdsworth. His second, Stephen Johnson, and third, Mark Scaife.
53 laps the total journey, 32 laps have been recorded. They're on their 33rd. And Will's got damage as a result of that contact, I think. Is there a problem with the front right-hand corner? Is that a flat tyre or some other damage?
This will tell us more. Oop, tells us a lot more.
His right front has been damaged when he's ripped over the top of that Vallelunga curbing down there, the sawtooth curbing. Must have got into the sidewall. So you're quite right, Lee, that observation. That should have been a much better weekend for Will Davison. He's had car speed. Holdsworth the leader, Scaife second. That's the margin you can see between first and second.
So now Johnson loses second, has to fight off Russell for third.
Scaife's on the march a bit here, so he just rounded up Stephen Johnson down in the final turn. He got Ingle the previous lap down between turns 1 and 2. That underlines the speed that was in that car for this weekend. Just again, probably overlooked him a little in the sense that he was leading comfortably in race 1, and that gearbox drama just completely sideswiped him. He's had 2 race meetings now where he's had great car speed and haven't been able to capitalise. There's the move. Stephen left tons of space for him.
Good to see the First Rock Home Loans Ford running up towards the front of the field, Stephen Johnson. And he comes into a whole different element in the Enduros. Stephen is a brilliant long-distance runner. So we'll see how he goes at Sandown and Bathurst. Darryl?
Well, it looks like they're getting Paul Morris ready here again. Paul, what happened?
Turned itself into a V7. So just a plug lead, I think. So we'll stick it back on and get back out there.
It's pretty heated earlier with in the traffic. You're getting bumped from behind into Russell Ingall. Pretty tough action.
Yeah, I put on my worst tyres and it wasn't a good move. Obviously, I was struggling out there. So turned out all right. You know, we didn't get much points for this race. So I got 6 good tyres for the last race. So I'll see if I can make some points up there.
Thanks, Paul. I'll tell you what, when you stick your head in one of these cars, Neil, and interview someone, you feel the heat coming out of them. It's hot in there.
Yeah, it should be a good 40+ degrees in there today, even on a winter's day. It's generally 15 to 20 degrees warmer in the cabin over and above the ambient. This is the situation. Lee Holdsworth has got a 3-second lead over Mark Scaife. They're on lap 35, and when we come back, we'll have a conclusion to this reverse grid race 2. And he's sliding all over the place, so I think Scaife won't have too much trouble rounding him up.
Gotcha. Change for the lead, and it was as easy as that. So Scaife is out in front and heading towards his 7th race victory of the season. But these aren't the ones that he wants to win. He doesn't want to win these reverse grid races. He wants to be winning the main ones. Meanwhile, Zinger replay. This was Lowndes on Ingle to move up into the top 4. And he'd been working away at that one for a long time.
Yeah, we've seen some good pace from Lowndes. He got Ingle, then he got Stephen Johnson in short order down at the final turn. So he's boosting his points tally and putting an exclamation on his pole position start for what will be race 3.
Putting an exclamation behind his series points lead as well. So new first man, Mark Scaife, then Lee Holdsworth second. Here's third, Lowndes. And Lowndes has time on his side to catch Holdsworth. And then the 3 Ford men fight it out here. Johnson, Ingle and Whincup. Whincup has had a very solid weekend, as the graphic there illustrates. He's third in the round points. James Courtney's had a good day too. He sits further back in 8th. Then Barguana is fending off Kelly and Stephen Richards, all in the top 10.
Lee, just a quick round the garage update for you. We've been down to the HSV dealer team. Garth Tander lost 2 tyres from his bank for the weekend and badly damaged 2 rims in that incident earlier in the race. Now he's just pressing on. His engineer Matthew Nielsen said they're not aware, other than panel damage, of anything more severe to that car. They'll be able to assess it when he returns to the garage after this race. Greg Murphy, the Super Cheap Auto team, were not able to speak to him before he parked the 51 car with that damage. John Panozzo, the crew chief, is a little concerned right now that it may have bent a rail at the front of the car, so they may have quite a lot of work to do between now and the final race this afternoon. And you've got a feel for Jason Richards. Neil detailed earlier in the telecast about how no teams use this circuit anymore as a test venue. The team with probably the most current test data was the Tasman Motorsport crew, and they were formerly the Lansvale racing team. They used to be based here, and Wally Story's done plenty of test miles around this circuit. Wally tells me that it's a left front upright that's broken on that car. And Wally, well, he's about to celebrate a birthday. I think he's the big 5-6 this week. He would have preferred a much better result to celebrate, though.
Before the start of this race, Stephen Richards, I spoke to him, he said, how was it for race 2? He said, well, rear tyre degradation was going to be an issue here. He said, I think it's the same up and down pit lane for everyone, but Jason Bright has been reporting to his team saying he's struggling with the rear end of that car, and from pit lane, watching him come off the bridge now, they're all Speedway style.
Yeah, it's the lap times have plummeted, Darryl. There, some of them are now getting into mid-13s around here, and you can see that shot there from overhead. Russell Ingall, he's just completely sliding the car off turn 6 all the way down through the valley.
This is the race for second. Lowndes on Holdsworth. Craig is so good into this corner, and add another one to his list. Nice work. He moves up to second, and he is out after Scaife.
In clean air, it'll be interesting to see what the speed comparison is between Lowndes and Scaife here.
He's running strong, isn't he? He is the man this weekend. Nice and smooth and fast.
Yes, and while he's strong, his key opponent in the championship's having a shocker, Garth Tander.
It's a zinger replay of Max Wilson just overdoing it down into turn 2. It's very easily done there, incidentally. We've had a lot of examples of that this weekend, as you can see by the tyre marks on the asphalt. But Maxie has been able to keep it 2 wheels on, 2 wheels off, and keep going. Here's Russell Ingall for Stone Brothers Racing. Speaking of Stone Brothers, former driver, former champion Marcus Ambrose. Well done, Marcus. He finished 3rd a couple of hours ago in the race in Nashville in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. So that is his 2nd top 3 result of the year. Marvellous stuff.
And just looking at the sector splits and keeping in mind that Craig Lowndes is now in clear air chasing Mark Scaife. He's got about a 10th on him in each sector. So he's closing just a fraction.
Fabian Coulthard in the Sirame Commodore still runs in the top 10, incidentally. He's running 7th at the moment. And while he teams up with Paul Radicic at Sandown at the Better Electrical 500, Paul Morris will team up with Stephen Ellery. Battles on here. Whincup trying to make inroads on Russell Ingall. Been a very solid weekend for Jamie Whincup, who, if you weren't aware, started the weekend as the fastest driver at the end of Friday's 2.5-hour practice session. This young man in his first season for 888 Race Engineering was on top. And that stirred the fire in Craig Lowndes' belly, because his normal 1-hour debrief with race engineer Campbell Little turned into a 3-hour debrief. Shows how serious Lowndes is. He doesn't like being upstaged by his teammate. No one does. But he's worked extra hard at getting back up on top. This is Todd Kelly on Jason Bargwanna, the fight for 9th. Bargs is doing a handy job.
And incidentally, Garth Tander is in 23rd position at the moment. And Jason Bright, who won pole position in the shootout, Jason is down in 14th. Last lap for Craig Lowndes, 11.9, 12.5 for Mark Scaife.
Heading in the right direction this weekend, Jason Bargwanna. He started 19th, finished race 1 15th, and he will finish in the top 10 in this reverse grid race with just a handful of laps to go here at Oran Park. Bright with the damaged cat forward. 14th at the moment.
That hasn't got any worse at the front of the car, so that hasn't really been a great issue for Jason, but it will have affected the handling of the car. It might have bumped the temperatures up slightly. But you know, he was involved there in various incidents. The early to mid sections of this race were just out of control.
Yeah.
There was so much going on. So he's now just circulating, trying to consolidate points. He's got 154 against his name for the weekend. It'll give him a reasonable starting position for race 3. But I'm sure he's a little bit frustrated. Whenever you earn a pole position, the expectation is that you can build on it from there.
Go on with it, yeah. Just updating you up the front of the field. There is a second, sometimes less than a second, between Scaife and Lowndes, so the fight's really on there in these closing laps of race 2, the final reverse grid of the 2006 season.
I think there'll be plenty of crews in the paddock that'll be happy to wave it off, and obviously there's a deep division in terms of opinions amongst various fans and custodians of the sport, but one thing's for sure, when you go and talk to any of the lads in the pit paddock, when you have to repair all this mess, and pay for it. There's a lot of stress involved.
Very interesting. Several nights ago, in the lead up to this event, Darryl and I hosted a corporate event, and just as a matter of interest, we had several drivers there, and we asked the crowd of a couple of hundred, are you pleased to see it go? And it was a unanimous yes. So, pretty interesting. It's thrown up a topic of discussion, to say the least. It's created some interesting racing. It's created a bit of damage, but anyway, the decision has been made. No more for 2006. Lowndes has got Scaife's lead down to just 0.7 of a second.
Yeah, that time through Craig at 12.1, Mark at 12.3. The previous lap they both did a 1:12.5 apiece. So Craig got a little bit of pace here and there, and here we go. This is the margin. One thing's for sure, if you're Craig Lowndes, when you're sitting on pole for race 3, you do not need to get involved in a scrap that's going to toss you off the road. By comparison, Craig's got 186 points for the weekend. Mark Scaife's got 64, so he'll know that. He'll be well aware of it. Campbell Little's been keeping him up to date with his likely starting position. But it's just fascinating to look at the difference between the two cars, and Dean Canto has a problem here.
What started out as a fairly promising weekend for Dean Canto has been somewhat frustrating. Former Sydney-sider, now resides in Melbourne. His mum and dad are here watching him this weekend, and this is not the way he will have liked to have performed in front of his home crowd. Last couple of laps, battles on at the front, it's more than on. Look at this.
Canto going slow at the straight here.
Campbell just warning Craig about the traffic. I mean, if he can get to the lead, great. But if he can't, I don't think that Roland Dane or any of the senior management at Triple Eight will want Craig to take too many risks. If be done easily, you'd absolutely grab it with both hands. But if getting all bent out of shape to do it is the order of the day, then that won't be a smart call. But I don't think, I mean, Craig's got good pace in different places around here. He might be able to get it done cleanly. But we're only a couple of laps from home.
These two bookend the top 10 in the championship points. Scaife is not a threat to Lowndes at the moment. Scaife is 10th in the championship. Lowndes leads the way and is increasing his points lead. Will he go for him into turn 11? Coming up is Craig Lowndes' best position on the track. Watch this. Not close enough this time round though to Scaife. And Scaife knows, look at him, dive through the inside. Takes the conservative, the defensive line. Coming up for the final lap here at Oran Park.
And that little reminder, last lap, think about the points. Cam McConnell just pulling to the left to give them space.
The two biggest names in V8 supercar racing, Scaife and Lowndes. Going for it at the front. But Lowndes is the man this weekend. It could very well have been Scaife the man this weekend if it weren't for a faulty gearbox yesterday.
12.8 last lap for Mark Scaife, 12.9 for Craig Lowndes. And so even these guys with the very best of cars and balance underneath them are just about to drift into the 1:13s, which is very, very slow lap times here.
I reckon Lowndes might put a move on him this time round if he can be right on his bumper.
Battle. At this point of the race, the officials have said to the drivers, you are allowed to drive defensively in the closing stages. So Mark will just ease to the left here down the last turn, which he just did.
And he does.
And then he'll try and take a bit of mid-corner speed out of Craig in the middle of the corner, which he does. And then he put his foot on the throttle, which he does. And away he goes.
It's win number 7 to Mark Scaife for 2006. He takes
fantastic.
the last reverse grid race, and that was a super performance. He started second last to first.
Shame it wasn't the one yesterday as well, because it's certainly a great rocket.
There you have it. He comes home, Scaife, Lowndes and Lee Holdsworth gets his best ever result in V8 supercar racing in third. And as the team reminded Mark Scaife, pity it wasn't the one yesterday, the higher points race, and to set him up for the weekend. But nonetheless, the race win is a race win.
Fastest lap of the race also for Craig Lowndes, a 10.5. That's a very strong performance from him. So he goes into this third race today in very good shape with a fast car, I assume with some pretty sexy rubber, and he's going to be a pretty hard man to stop from here.
Let's take a look at the VB scoreboard. We know the top three, Johnson, Ingle and Whincup, the three Ford men, fought it out hard just outside the top three. Fabian Coulthard, well done. Courtney has been consistently strong this weekend, and Bargwanna and Todd Kelly in the 10. There we have it, all the way back to 20th. When we come back to Oran Park, we'll hear what some of the boys had to say about the final reverse grid race.